Hello aspirants, this is our website aashar.com. We upload here current affairs daily, which you I suppose are referring to and downloading as a PDF file every day. We have also introduced online daily tests. So these are free online daily tests based on current affairs. You can access them by this link here. So this is the login page. So for this new login, you can sign up here. You can put in your details. You will get a confirmation email. You will be receiving the email ID and password. But then you will have to be enrolled by the institute into the course, the free online daily course, and then you will be having all the tests visible for you. So this, you can access this free facility too. So these will be current affairs questions based on the current affairs of the previous day. So that will be uploaded every next day. So now looking at current affairs for 14th December. The 9 news items that we have picked up from the Hindu are these. We'll discuss them in detail. The first one, Trump picks ExxonMobil chief Rex Tillerson for Secretary of State. So Rex Tillerson is the chief executive officer of petroleum multinational company ExxonMobil. So it's an American multinational having its operations even in Russia. Rex Tillerson is known to be close to Russia as well as having close ties with Russian President Vladimir Putin. So this is the appointment done. He has selected, Donald Trump has selected Rex Tillerson as US Secretary of State, but this appointment can be confirmed only by Senate. So after Senate approves it, this appointment is finalized. Senate is the upper house of US Congress, US Parliament. So now another news which has come forth is that Central Intelligence Agency, CIA of USA, has disclosed recently that the Russian government authorized cyber attacks took place on USA in order to facilitate Donald Trump's win in the US presidential elections. So this has stunned congressmen, members of parliament. As we say MPs, they call it congressmen because Parliament of USA is called Congress. So this has stunned congressmen, means members from both political parties, Democrats and Republicans. So they are demanding for an investigation in this matter because Russia is considered as opposed to USA in all matters. So this is a stunning news which has been revealed by CIA. Of course, Donald Trump denies it. The next news item is transformational effect of school planning. So this is actually of the series of articles on education which the Hindu is running for the last few days. It will be running for 7 days as such. So these 2 articles on education are from that series. So this article is actually talking about this Adarsh school concept which was introduced in 2015 by the Rajasthan state government. So under this Adarsh school, what is planned is that one Adarsh school, preferably from class 1 to 12 or maybe for till class 10th too, should be established in every Gram Panchayat. So this other school will have all the resource facilities. So it acts as a resource center for all other schools in that Gram Panchayat. So such other schools are being developed in Rajasthan, and it is seen that this concept is paying dividends. So what is seen is that primary schools do function. So under Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan too, there were too many schools established, even many private schools came up. But now primary schools are all supervised by the block level officer. So these block level officers have at least 200 to 300 schools within a block under them for supervision, and it is difficult for them to actually supervise each of these schools. So in secondary schools you have principals. So what can happen is if this integration takes place the way it is taking place as other school, because other school is from 1 to 10th or 12th. So then if integration of these schools take place, so then it would be much more beneficial, and that is what is being seen presently, that since schools from primary to secondary are integrated, then you have a principal for the entire school, the resources are also shared, and it pays dividends. So in Rajasthan too, it is seen that because of this other school concept, enrollment in senior secondary grades have increased. Gender parity has also improved across all classes. So now the government is seeing that educational inputs are improving, educational numbers are improving, of enrollment rate, the dropout rates are reducing, and the government has achieved all this without undertaking privatization. So that is significant. Through public schools, government schools, this has been achieved. Then the next article is on empowering the right to education. So we have Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education, RTE Act, which was passed in 2009. So this act provides free and compulsory education to all children 6 to 14 years of age. This is actually a fundamental right too. by the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2002, this was inserted as a fundamental right, Article 21A. So this, including being a fundamental right, though it is a fundamental right, for its implementation there is some provision required. So there was an act required, and this was the act passed in 2009. So it's been 6 years since this act has been in effect. So how have the figures fared? That is what we need to analyze. So even before RTE, we have established many primary schools. So under Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, 99% of India's rural population has a primary school within its 1 kilometer radius. So this has been achievement already done. Now with the implementation of Right to Education Act, even enrollment rates have increased. So since 2009, we have enrollment level of 95%. So though this looks like a big number, but then 5% population which is not enrolled, 5% of these children, that's a huge figure considering India's population. So that is also worrying. But then still more worrying is the dropout rate. So dropout rate has also declined. So there's been a 55% decline in dropout rate between 2005 to 2014 for this age group 6 to 14 years, which is targeted under the RTE Act and the constitutional right. So this dropout rate is worrying. Many children do not complete their schools. The complete schooling is not done by them, and these dropout rates vary based on the communities. So scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, in these communities, religious minorities, this is seen that the dropout rates are significantly high. Plus also the rural urban divide. In rural areas, we see that the dropout rates are quite high. So there's a need to work on this aspect to ensure that not just enrollment rates are high, but dropout rates also decrease significantly to the extent that every child completes the schooling. So that is what we need to work on. Under the RTE Act, the two major provisions which have been significantly discussed, one is about 25% reservation of seats for children from disadvantaged communities in the region. So this in the neighborhood. So this 25% reservation has been criticized because it is applicable to private schools as well. So, but then this is necessary as we see that there is a broad distinction between the achievements for under education, for general category, and for these underserved, unreserved, or rather reserved category. So we need to work on this aspect as well. This needs to be supported. Plus then another aspect which is highlighted is that many low cost or budget schools, as they are called, have faced closure, and the reason being that they did not meet the infrastructural requirements under the RTE Act. So this is also worrying because there are plush private schools which are established and they get good enrollment, they are sought after. But then there are low budget schools too which need to function because there are these disadvantaged community who cannot afford the high fees, and this 25% reservation cannot ensure enrollment for every child from the disadvantaged community. So this is also a soft after which everyone would not get. So there is a need for budget schools to also function. So this aspect needs to be worked on. So that is highlighted. And one more point finally which it puts forth is that about 70% of India's students study in government schools, and fixing the government schools problems which I have been discussing since the last 2-3 days too, is very important. So improving quality and quantity too, the infrastructure needs to be improved as well. So this is what needs to be highlighted, that actual learning takes place in these government schools as well. So that is about this. Then the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, under which we saw primary schools being established, it had many objectives and targets to be achieved. It wanted universal retention. Universal retention means no dropouts by 2012. So it aimed at bridging the gender divide, the social divide which is there in enrollments at primary stage. Then at elementary stage also, before the primary stage. Then focus on elementary education was there. Each child should complete 8 years of elementary schooling. So all these were provisions under it to ensure that at least primary schooling is available to all children. But now we have to move beyond this. So Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan has done its job. Now it's the time for right to education. So right to education is the one which is targeting universal education till 6 to 14 years of age for all children in India. So these 25% reservation is one aspect which is highlighted. So it's free and compulsory education which is to be assured for all children. So even in this 25% reservation, the fees for these private schools Fees would not be paid by them. Fees will be funded by the government. So that aspect is also there, and it is done through random selection. So these are also sought after seats, random selection. Some children may get into them, but others may not. Then the next news item is a scam in states helicopter deals. So we have already discussed about Augusta Westland VVIP helicopter deal of 2010, in which the Indian Army was seeking to buy these helicopters, and the scam came out from the Italy radio broadcast, and this resulted in CBI also filing cases. Recently the news was about former Air Chief Marshal then SP Tyagi, who has been arrested with others involved. So now this news item is about VVIP helicopters which have been purchased by states. This was Indian Air Force purchasing. Now it is the states. So states purchase these helicopters, and here too they have done this without issuing tenders. So there is no clarity about how these purchases were done, and many were from Augusta Westland only again. So this is being highlighted by the audit by CAG. CAG is Comptroller and Auditor General of India. So he audits. Audits is like checking the accounts of the state government. So this auditing of the accounts happens. So it sees how much was allotted, for what purpose was it allotted, has it been used sensibly. Everything is checked by CAG. So of course it takes a lot of time. CAG, Comptroller and Auditor General, that's a complete office of Comptroller and Auditor General of India. But then he cannot do it for all states and for the union as such, for PSUs as well, in 1 year. So it happens over a period of time. So there are some areas which are scrutinized every year. So it's done by this rotation as such. So presently in this CAG's audit, what has come out is that in Jammu and Kashmir's procurement of Augusta Westland by the state government. So these are VVIP helicopters. So central government can also procure them. The state governments can also procure them. The Air Force has procured them. So this state governments, when they procure them for their VVIPs, like state governor or the chief minister or other dignitaries. So for them, they have procured these helicopters from Augusta Westland, but then this was done through no transparent manner. So how are the tender issues? Who were there in the fray? How was one particular company selected? One particular helicopter model selected? Nothing is out. So this non-transparency has been highlighted by CAG. So this is there in case of Jammu and Kashmir, in case of Punjab, Rajasthan. Again, it has purchased Augusta Westland helicopters. Punjab purchased Bell helicopters. Even Augusta Westland purchased by Jharkhand. No open tender was issued. And in Rajasthan case, there is another problem, that it has not used the helicopter which it purchased in 2008 from Augusta Westland. And the reason which it gives is that there is no trained pilot to fly the helicopter. So this is the reason given by Rajasthan government. So it is a unnecessary loss of 1.14 crore on this one helicopter they have purchased. Then about Chhattisgarh too. In Chhattisgarh, the CAG reveals a clear criminal conspiracy, because in this case the tender was issued, but it was a sham tender. Means it was not a true tender with some purpose. It was just to rig the whole process to show that tenders were issued. So tenders were issued by the same person, or forged documents were made, and same person participated in all the tenders. And this payment which was being made is also traced to some investment banker. So all these are involved in this case. So there is a clear criminal conspiracy which has been dug out by CAG now in its audit. So this is there. So there is a clear recommendation that Supreme Court has said that there should be open tender, an invitation sent to all suppliers before allocating this deal to any company. So that was not followed in these cases. So that is against the provisions established. So this is about CAG. The current CAG is Shashikant Sharma. So what are his functions? Auditing the expenditure, receipts and expenditure of Government of India and the state governments, all state governments. So this is then report is submitted to the government. It is placed before the Public Accounts Committee, one of the committees of the Parliament, and then it is studied. So CAG then gives its recommendations. It helps. It's called the Friend, Philosopher and Guide to Public Accounts Committee too, and then finally it is discussed by the Parliament as well. So that is CAG. The next news item is Center to Fund Digital Discounts. So we heard about various digital discounts which the government is planning to implement, but all these discounts have to be given, like oil, when you're buying petroleum and you are using the cards, digital payment, then you will be given a discount. So in such cases, this discount this is there assured for PSU, petroleum companies. So in such cases, who will bear the cost? So that is the question, this discount cost. So now the government has clarified that this will be added as a new expenditure head, and the exchequer, the government, will bear this cost. The companies, the PSUs, will not have to take the responsibility for this. So this is one point added up. So there is required to be a separate expenditure head if there is a new expenditure taking place in a financial year, because budget has already been passed. So then later it would be approved. Then other things highlighted are that the other initiatives which the government is taking to promote digital discounts, digital economy, cashless economy. So it is asking the usage of Pay Government India facility. So all government organizations, PSUs, authorities should make sure that they have some payment facility for online payment. There is PayGov India. PayGov India can also be used by them, or any other facility. There are many facilities. Then it is talking about the entire geographical area across the country has been mapped. So this is an official saying that this has been the work done by the government, that they have mapped the entire geographical area where banks are located, the concentration of banks, which are the gray areas where there are no banks or banking correspondents. So some regions, remote regions, also have these bank correspondents called bank mitras. So bank mitras act like banks. So that's a person, he has his own handheld model device in which he can put in all the details. He can act as taking in deposits too and issuing withdrawals also. So that is how he functions. So through a computerized system this takes place. So these people are called bank mitras. So there are either banks or bank mitras which are there functioning throughout, but then some areas don't have even these. So these gray areas, how can they be brought into the fold? So government is considering even giving connectivity to these regions through VSAT. VSAT is very small aperture terminal. So this is a two-way satellite communication which can take place. So for these POS etc., you can have this system. So it can function as a unit through which data can be sent into and data can be received as well. So for small narrowband data, this is generally used. So POS, point of sale transactions, which we have discussed earlier, how you use the card in various, when you go for purchasing something, when you make payment by card, so you have the card is swiped on a device which has its keypad. So that is called a POS terminal. So this point of sale transactions which take place, that can be facilitated in these regions. Bank transactions can be facilitated in this region if VSAT technology is used. So this is very small aperture terminal technology. So generally what we see is one-way communication technology. So this is two-way satellite technology communication. So this is used for point of sale transactions, credit cards usage, all these are possible through this. So this VSAT technology is planned to be implemented in these uncovered regions on a priority basis. So we'll see what happens in this matter too. Then it also highlights that there is this bharatkosh.gov.in, which is a non-tax receipt portal. So this has been put forth, so all non-tax payments can be done online to the government through this portal. Then another point highlighted is that the government is planning a national common mobility card. So this will be a multi-purpose card, multimodal card, which can be developed for smart cities, because smart cities, all payments are done through cards. So there should be a single card through which all payments can be done. So this national common mobility card is being planned and tested on a pilot basis presently. So these are the initiatives taken. So this is VSAT technology, how it takes place through satellites. These are geosynchronous satellites which are used for this. Then it goes to all remote sites, VSAT terminals which are there. Then the next news item is Qatar abolishes kafala labor system. So this kafala labor system, which is there in Middle Eastern countries, it requires that if any person who is working in the country should have a local sponsor. So that person can be an individual or a company, and his permission would be needed if that person who is under this kafala system, any worker, foreign worker, he will have to take the sponsor's permission if he wants to switch jobs or leave the country. So this was highly criticized system. This is still prevalent in many countries. in various other countries, Qatar has presently abolished the kafala system. So this is compared to modern day slavery, that workers become vulnerable. They have no other option. They have to, if their sponsor does not allow them to switch the job, then he is working with them and he cannot leave the country too. So then he becomes a virtual slave. So presently the news is that it has been abolished. So here you can see the kafala system is there in these Gulf countries. Saudi Arabia and Qatar are two countries where this system prevails. With even exit. For exit you need the permit, you need the permission from the sponsor. So Qatar now has abolished this. So these are the countries. This is Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar. You can see the full map here too. So this is Kuwait. Bahrain is a small island nation here. Qatar, UAE. So these are the countries. In some exit permission is not required, but you need a sponsor. So these are this Kuwait and UAE. So, and implemented reforms that benefit migrant workers. This is Oman. So they have taken initiatives here. So Middle East is also reforming. Then the next news item is retail inflation at 2-year low of 3.6%. So retail inflation is inflation under the consumer price index, CPI. So retail inflation is quite low since food inflation has remained low. So the sharp slowdown in food inflation has resulted in CPI also coming down. So it's the 4th consecutive month since food inflation has slowed down. So there's something called core inflation and headline inflation. Headline inflation means overall inflation, including all commodities, and total inflation. And core inflation, when you say this, core inflation means excluding commodities which are volatile, whose prices are volatile. Means prices can go drastically high or drastically low. So two major commodities in this category are food and oil. So if food and oil is excluded and inflation is calculated, then this is one way to understand what is core inflation. So this is long run trend in price level which can be understood. So this core inflation has remained stable in India. Inflation in various commodities have showed a slowdown. So that is highlighted here. So this year inflation has remained low. Then this again you can see that what is headline inflation and core inflation. So when you have understood this, you will understand this aspect too, that headline inflation gets more attention in the media, that inflation has gone high overall, but that overall inflation is driven by some commodities which are volatile. So this core inflation gives a better understanding. Core inflation excludes energy and food products. So this is one way to determine core inflation, popular way. The next news item is IPSA meet may see pact to boost trade. So there is a proposal that there should be a trade agreement, comprehensive economic partnership agreement. This trade agreement should be between India and two trade organizations. One is Mercosur and another one is SACU. In Mercosur we have Brazil as a member and South Africa has a member in SACU. So these two multilateral organizations will be linked with India through a complete comprehensive agreement, CEPA. So this will be done hopefully in the IPSA summit, India, Brazil, South Africa. The IPSA summit will take place in mid of 2017 in India. So at this summit, this would be on agenda. So first of all, IPSA, we have already discussed IPSA yesterday, if you remember, with respect to Indonesia, that India should encourage and allow Indonesia to become a member of this grouping too, because IPSA is South-South cooperation. So India, Brazil in South America, South Africa in the African continent in the south, and Indonesia, which is again in that same region below. So here you can have a South-South cooperation along with this country as well. So that is the proposal. So that time we discussed it. So what is IPSA? IPSA is a forum which started its summit since 2006, and this will be the 6th IPSA summit which would take place in India. The last summit was proposed in 2013 in India, but that got cancelled. So it's not an annual summit. So again, this forum has not had annual summits as such. So there have been gaps. So IPSA summit hopefully would take place in 2017 now. And one more important aspect of IPSA is there is an IPSA fund which has been established. So this IPSA fund is docked with UN, and this requires that each member provides $1 million per year to this fund, and this funding would be used for benefit of the extremely underdeveloped, undeveloped countries. So these will be the regions in which these funding would be used for various purposes. So IPSA fund we would discuss later. Another point which is there, so apart from IPSA fund, what would be on agenda in this IPSA summit would be this trade agreement. So there would be a trade agreement, CEPA, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. That is a trade agreement between three, trilateral trade agreement between India as a country and two groupings. This Mercosur is a trading bloc of Latin America, a trading bloc and a custom union. So money exchange is also allowed. So that's why it's called a custom union too. So trade and money exchange both takes place. So this Mercosur in Latin America, comprising of Brazil as well, and SACU, South African Customs Union. So this is a custom union including South Africa. So already we have a PTA with Mercosur and we are negotiating a PTA with SACU. So preferential trade agreement provision is there. Now we'll merge all together, because these are the prominent countries, Brazil and South Africa, prominent countries in each of these groupings respectively. So all three under IPSA, they can come together as India, Mercosur, SACU, CEPA. So this will be one thing. And IPSA funding, as it is said, that of course funding has not come forward, so there have been lags, but then this funding has still been successful. So it is, as I said, it is managed by UNFS in UNDP, United Nations Development Program. The projects completed under IPSA fund, you can see, are projects for combating HIV AIDS in Burundi. In Palestine, sports promotion rehabilitation center, hospital centers have been established. In healthcare infrastructure, drinking water, solid waste management in Haiti, Vietnam, rice production. So all these aspects we have worked on, and IPSA has provided funding for this. So this IPSA fund has been successful to some extent, but now it is planned that this fund should be held by the nation states themselves rather than UN, and which units should be provided this funding. So that should be clarified, because it says that there is sector and region agnostic. This fund is sector and region agnostic, which means that for what sector to provide it and what region should this fund go to. There is skepticism and doubt on this aspect. So how it is done, there should be more clarity on this. Then the Mercosur, you can see the Mercosur is this grouping. So it promotes free trade and fluid movement of goods, people and currency. So it's a trade and custom union. So this comprises of 4 members, 5 members actually. Venezuela has been suspended since 1st December 2016 because of the issues which the country is facing presently. So you can see this. So it's along with Mercosur and Andean Community of Nations. So Andes are the mountainous regions here. So these two communities together form Union of South American Nations. So this is just an additional information. So these are the countries of Mercosur. Venezuela suspended now. Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay and Uruguay. 4 present members then. And their others are associate members. Then the next SACU, South African Customs Union, comprises of these countries. It is said to be the oldest customs union in the world, South African Customs Union. It was established in 1910. So presently again it has 5 countries. So here it is South Africa, Namibia, Botswana and 2 countries here. You can see Swaziland and Lesotho. So Swaziland has, South Africa is majorly enclosed, boundary majorly with South Africa, and Lesotho is completely surrounded by South Africa, but it's a separate country. So these are the 5 nations in SACU. Then the next news item is the last one. War against malaria far from over. This is the World Malaria Report, which World Health Organization has released recently, and in it says that there is funding required because global fight against malaria is not yet over and there is urgent need of more funding. So that is what it is highlighting. It says that nearly 78% of Plasmodium vivax malaria cases in 2015 occurred in just 4 countries: Ethiopia, Indonesia, India and Pakistan. So there's a need to work on eradicating malaria. The World Health Organization had targeted that it will cut malaria cases to near zero by the end of 2015. But this goal has been far from successful. So it has fallen far short now. So what it is now aiming for is that there should be at least 90% reduction in malaria cases and deaths by 2030. So this is the fresh target set by WHO. You can see the distribution of malaria. It's a little old data, but not drastic changes have taken place. You can see the maximum incidence is there in Africa. So number of confirmed malaria cases, as the number increases, the color becomes darker. So here is India as well. These are regions where malaria cases are found. So it's in the southern hemisphere majorly. And then this is regarding one more news which was there on the front page. This is regarding polio. So just polio is presently endemic in only 3 countries. So those are Afghanistan, Nigeria and Pakistan. So otherwise polio has been eradicated even from India. India has achieved that status. But then these 3 countries still have polio endemic. Means polio cases occur in these countries. So that is it for today. Thank you.